We're on.
Hey, how you doing, Jono?
Doing well, thank you, my friend. Yourself?
Good, doing excellent. Just getting ready to go to Israel, man. You about ready?
We are ready. Actually, let's talk about that for a second because a lot of people have been asking if there is still room left on the Tanakh tour, and I can tell you that at the moment there is, not
Yep,
only on the Israel tour, but also on the Jordan tour.
that's
A little
right.
bit more room on the Jordan tour, but there's a little bit of room left on the Israel tour. So if you want to join us, and a lot of people have been asking if they still can, you do have time, but you need to place a deposit to secure your rooms, to secure your seat on the bus, and you can do that at tanakhtours.com.
I
Tanakhtours.com.
I even put the
Okay,
link up so they can find it. See the link? Link is
take
right
a
there,
link.
Jono.
There it is, right below the
That's
screen.
it.
So we'd love you to join us, and we really have an exciting tour and some really fun people coming with us this year. So
I mean,
uh,
just with me and you. I mean,
just with you and I,
just
we'll be,
just with
yeah,
us, just with
I'll be
us.
there. You'll be there. We're going to be meeting up with Tovia in Jerusalem, and it's going to be great. And our illustrious tour guide, of course, Gershon Portnoy. It is just going to be an absolutely brilliant tour. Both of them, in fact, a lot of people are doing both tours because they do run back to back. The Israel tour first, and then the Biblical Jordan tour. Uh, and again, people have said to me, "Hey, where are we going on the Jordan tour? We're going everywhere
Yeah.
that is biblically relevant. We are squeezing into this 9-day itinerary. So you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be really good. There's
I
a
was
combination.
surprised. I was going to say I was surprised at not really surprised, but I was excited to see that so many people who are doing the Israel tour are also doing the Jordan
Mm,
tour. It just makes sense. I mean, you're already there. You only have to get one airfare.
hmm
So while you're there, you may as well just tack on both if you can swing it,
Yeah,
because it's going to really be nice.
yeah, it's going to be great. I was going to say that. No, I lost my train of thought. But again, the link is just below us, tanakhtours.com. That's where you can place your deposits and secure your seat on the tour with us this November, boys and
Yep.
girls. So it's going to be really good. And yeah, so you just bought your tickets. I bought mine a few days before our airfares, that is.
Yep.
So we are absolutely locked in, and we're locking in our extra days and accommodation and all that sort of stuff. Reservations are being made now. So if you have been wanting to go with us, now is the time to place that deposit so we can get you securely in.
You know,
All right.
I've had a few people ask me, "Hey, Ben Michael, hey Cassandra,
Hey, Ben.
yeah." People have asked, "Are ticket prices about the same?" You know, there's some concern. I know fuel costs are up here in the states over
Yeah.
what they usually are, and I will tell you that I did have to look a little bit longer to find that perfect ticket.
Mm.
If you do spend the time and do a little bit of research, you might have to have a little bit longer layovers or whatever. But I was able to find some pretty good price tickets. Yeah.
I'm telling you, we did too, and because I've heard this, people have been saying, "Oh, the price of fuel is up, and therefore the price of flights are up." But it was Chad actually that introduced me. G'day, Chad, who introduced me to Google Flights,
Yeah.
which I have found to be a really handy tool in finding the best deals. And sometimes when you look on, a day or two either side of when you want to be there, you might find a deal that pays for itself if you have to get
Right.
there early and pay for accommodation. So it's really handy, and I would highly recommend that to people. Google Flights.
Yeah. I told you, it looks like, so we both have sons going.
hmm
So they're about the same age. So that ought to be fun.
And they're
I
both
booked,
sick at the moment. They're both
they
sick at the
are.
moment. G'day to
Yep.
Toby, who's got a sore throat. Sorry,
Yep.
mate. Hope you're feeling better soon.
And
Uh,
William.
and William hasn't surfaced yet today. He's in bed with the dreaded COVID,
Right.
and I'm doing my best not to catch it. And so far, I've been successful. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
Um,
you wanna try to avoid that if you can. In fact, when I went to the doctor with Toby, the doctor asked, "Has he been around anyone?" And I said, "Yeah, me." I mean, I wish I would have known because I thought he just had a sore throat, but evidently
yeah,
it was something a little more serious.
a
But
little serious.
anyway, thankfully, we're both still healthy, and the boys will be good to go in just a
That'll be
short period
fine.
of time. Toby and I booked a ticket with a long layover in Amsterdam, Jono, and I was
Mm.
thinking that if yeah, it's like 12 hours, but we did it. I had to find a ticket that was really working out for me in a lot of ways. And this one, I'm hoping we might leave our bags. I think they're
Mhm.
going to be checked all the way through, but maybe put them in a locker or something. We have like a 12-hour layover that we could do a little Shapiro research while we're in the Netherlands. So,
All right, so just give us the update. Actually, I'll tell you what. Okay, where are we now on the Shapira calendar, and what is the significance to Amsterdam? And I guess you're talking about Rotterdam, which is not that far away, to the
yeah.
Shapira story. Just give us a brief outline there.
Well, first of all, I'll let people know that on my website, themosesscroll.com, this month, August, I'm replaying, if you will, the events that took place in August of 1883, because
Hmm.
the events of August 1883 are really the central focus of the whole case, what I call the most controversial case in the history of biblical scholarship. And what happens is at the end of August, Shapira leaves Germany and he goes to London and he comes unannounced to the office of the Palestine Exploration Fund. There he meets the secretary, Walter Besant. Walter Besant coordinates a meeting because, he shows Besant this ancient scroll. He said, "I really want to show this to the top scholars in England." So they coordinate a meeting. The 26th of July, they have a meeting where a few of the scholars see the scroll. They're kind of blown away by this. Christian David Ginsburg gets the scroll. He's tasked with determining, is this a forgery or is it real? So the British Museum tasked Ginsburg. Ginsburg takes it into custody at the British Museum. Now, all through August the 3rd is the first time it hits the papers. It hits the London Times and it hits the Athenaeum. And both of these papers begin to really cover this. And then other papers around the world pick this up. The new Deuteronomy, ancient Deuteronomy scroll. And literally, Jonah, the whole world is reading. This is the biggest thing in the news right then.
Mm.
And so, what I thought would be interesting is to write a blog post for each of the days. So, for instance, on August 3rd, this past August 3rd, I published what the newspapers published on August 3rd,
Hmm.
August 4th, August 6th, August 10th, August 11th. Today, I published one for today. And I think the next major news media release is on the 13th of August. But
Hmm.
people can keep up with this. And what's so interesting is you're getting it fresh, just like you pick up the morning news, because this is what I think is so fascinating
And
about the story.
because at the time it did dominate the news,
It
and
did.
people can find that on your blog, which is themosesscroll.com.
Yeah,
There's the blog there that has. Is that correct?
that's right.
Okay.
TheMosesScroll.com. Yeah.
All right.
So I really encourage people to, you're only a few days behind, so you can catch up. And today, by the way, August the 11th is the first day that Ginsburg releases, let's say, the first installment of the scroll.
Hmm.
So he releases it in 3 installments over the period of August. So,
Now,
yeah,
he painfully keeps people waiting because, as I mentioned, it is the news of the day, and people are saying, "What does it say?
yeah,
What does the scroll say?" And tell us about it because they're absolutely fascinated because it is the buzz, it's the
yep,
craze, if I can say it, of the day is the archaeology and finding something ancient and finding something authentic and so on and so forth. And so people are beside themselves wanting to know the details. And
yep,
Ginsburg, like someone else I'm thinking of in
yeah,
coming back to our last program, we'll get to that in a minute,
right,
is taking that time, releasing the necessary information, and
right,
loving it. I would say. I think he enjoys the limelight, and so Ginsberg is slowly releasing little bits of transcriptions or translations rather to the
yep,
Athenaeum, and people are really lapping it up. In fact, the prime minister comes and checks out the document. And
Not yet, not yet. Don't look. It's in fact, I was going to just throw in when you said that.
go on.
August the 14th is when the prime minister comes, so they'll be able to
Oh,
read the
okay.
report just like it happens. Right now, play like you didn't hear that if you're listening.
Okay.
You don't know that no, but you're right, Jono. The whole world is there. I mean, think about the prime minister of England right now. If this scroll were discovered today and the prime minister is going to the British Museum to see it. I mean, this is
It's a
you're
big deal.
seeing it unfold as it does. It's an incredible story.
So that's how big it is. Now, I alluded to our the last time that we met. It was a couple of weeks ago because we had a couple of interruptions and we
Yep.
couldn't get back. We're here now, and we were talking about the latest buzz in the papers in regards to an archaeological find and an ancient inscription, or claim to have an ancient inscription on top. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah,
Remind everyone.
we've talked about a couple of these, and we've really looked at a couple. The first one was back several months ago at what is presented as Mount Ebal, and this lead amulet, this little folded lead amulet came. It was found at Mount Ebal in some dirt that Adam Zertal's excavations had unearthed several years ago, but it was kept, apart. And recently, Scott Stripling and his team. Scott Stripling is the scholar who is over the archaeological excavations at Shiloh, which we're going to on the tour.
We'll be there. Yeah,
Hopefully, we'll be able to see Stripling. I know that
maybe he'll be there. Yeah,
he
that'd be
might be
great.
there working when we go. That'd be great. Maybe we
That'd
could
be cool.
arrange something like that. But anyway, they found this amulet, and this was it's called the Mount Ebal lead curse amulet. And I have it written here. You want me to tell you what it says?
Please.
All right, you ready? I'm going to read it in Hebrew. I'm going to translate it.
Love these curses.
All right, here we go. Wait, that's the wrong curse tablet. Hold on just a second. Let's see what this one says. Here you go. You ready? Cursed, 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 cursed by the god Yod-Heh-Wah. So it's a three-letter form of the name. You will die cursed. Cursed you will surely die. Cursed by Yod-Heh-Wah. That's the three-letter name again. Cursed, cursed, cursed. So in just a few characters, this amulet is it's a curse. And because it was discovered at the site proposed to be Mount Ebal, which is, according to Adam Zertal and many other people, a lot of historians believe that this area near Shechem, near Nablus, modern day Nablus, but ancient biblical Shechem, is the site of the curse, the blessing, the mountain of the blessing and the curse.
There's Mount Gerizim and there's Mount Ebal, and they believe, and tradition says that this is where they are. Now, it's not.
Right.
Not everyone believes that, and there's some good reason why that's. But we may touch on that another day. But but in any case, this is where it's at, and down in the middle, in the valley, is Shechem, biblical Shechem, which is today known as Nablus. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we've been there on previous tours, and
Anytime.
actually looked out over, and you can see the tomb of Joseph, and so it's these tonight.
Actually, you know what? Let me interrupt because we're going to go there as well. We don't give a lot. Our itinerary is top secret, as everybody knows. And
see, I didn't know if you were going to tell them. We get to go there.
I know, but I'm going to tell them because we're talking about it, and we do go there often, and we view it from Elon Moreh. And the reason why we do that is because as I mentioned, our illustrious tour guide Gershon Portnoy was up until recently a inhabitant of the town there, and he knows it very, very well, and has some fabulous stories to tell. And it would be it'd be silly of us to miss out on that. But it's also so rich in biblical narrative that we must go.
Right,
and
I love it there. I love it.
It's
really
great.
Beautiful in that area.
And as you know, there's a number of things that we do this. So I'm not going to give that away, but you're going to be able to see that on the Tanakh tour. Mount Ebal, Mount Gerizim, Shechem down in the middle. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, and so the significance of this find is it's pretty interesting. So it's dated to the biblical period, this little amulet that
Mm,
was discovered there. And by the way, just to let people know if they've forgotten this or they didn't know it, they didn't unfold this lead amulet. What they
mm,
did was they were able to read it with special equipment. And a scholar by the name of Galil, Professor Galil,
mhm,
is the one or one of the few scholars who actually looked at it, interpreted it, translated it, and said, "Hey, this is significant. It's a curse. Here it is at Mount Ebal. You put these two together, and voila, very interesting case."
mm,
So that wasn't enough. That wasn't all that, and we got excited. We studied it. In fact, I wrote an article on my academia page.
mhm,
Here's the title: "The Lead Curse Amulet and Shapira's Altarless Alternative Ebal." What does that
mm.
mean? Yeah, that's a pretty fun article. So then,
Hang on,
then
before we get to the before
yeah,
we get to the then, let me say before we get off that one and on to the next one, it was not without scrutiny. It was not without skepticism. There were people saying, "Well, hang on, wait a minute. You've unleashed this upon the world. You've let uh, the the public claim it as what for what you say it is, without any scrutiny by without peer review."
that's right.
And we would like to see the fine details. Show us the photographs, show us the scans, show us all of that stuff, and let us all try and see what you have seen, Professor Galil. So I don't know if that has happened yet. Has that happened yet?
To my knowledge, it has not yet happened.
That's
Professor
frustrating.
Galil and a small team,
Mm,
I think it's three other scholars, have worked closely with Professor Galil, and they have promised that a peer-reviewed article is forthcoming. But to
okay.
my knowledge, it has not appeared yet, and I have been watching fairly closely for it.
Yeah, and and so people are wondering, why is it taking so long? Why would you announce this and then say, "Ah, wait a few months before we give you the rest of the details"? It is frustrating. It may well say exactly what he says it says,
That's right. It
and
may.
it,
Yeah.
it really may, and that's fine. But we would love to see the details, um, and you get that feeling of what it would have been like back in the day in England, as they're waiting for Ginsburg to give them more information,
Yep.
palm off some more information to the Athenaeum paper. Now that brings us to another artifact in Jerusalem that we touched on a couple of weeks ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, this other one was discovered in a dig. The archaeologist named Eli Shukran was doing an archaeology dig there at the city of David. So it's in a location. And by the way, this is near the Siloam Tunnel, and we might as well tell them we're going to do that as well, because you've sort of let that out on the internet.
Yeah, I have.
I,
You're
now
you're
I'm,
doing
I'm
that.
I'm
You're
going through
yeah
because I can't wait to go through. We're going to take photos, and only the brave will go through this dark,
yeah.
tight,
That's what it is.
scary tunnel
Let
with
me
me.
just rephrase what you said. Only the short will go through this really short
Yeah,
tunnel. If I were ever to do it again, as I mentioned on our Tanakh Tours group page, a group, Facebook group, don't go looking for it because it's a secret. It's only for people who have placed deposits or have been before. So to meet each other and so on and so forth. But as I mentioned on that group, if I were ever to do it again, it would be like a salamander, lying down on my stomach, you know,
right.
going through the water like that because I can't stand up in there.
So why don't
Um,
you do that? I mean,
no,
that makes sense.
I no, I'm telling you, I was going to do it last time when I went through there. I don't know, was it 7 years ago or something like that for the first time? I
Yeah.
seriously considered doing that, but I don't think the water was deep enough. I don't think I would
Oh
have
yeah, it
gotten.
was deep enough. You just don't remember.
No, I'm telling you because I thought about it and I thought I'm seriously going to do this because it's just way too short for me.
It's
Um,
generally, and we're different height. I know people know that, but it's generally up to, if I recall, it's probably anywhere from knee to mid thigh range on me, so a little bit shallower on you, maybe. But
I'm,
but anyway,
I'm
we're
just
going to
saying.
do this, and
No, no,
and
no. I'm telling you, I evaluated and I decided that I wasn't going to get sufficient buoyancy, and so I
yeah,
had to struggle with it. Anyway, but we are going through. You're going through there. You're going to take the people. You're going to show them where
that's right.
the
We're the
Salome
inscription.
inscription.
That's right.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
the Salome inscription is very important. We've talked about this and I've published on it, but It's important because it is one of the most important inscriptions discovered, and we'll talk about that in the tunnel, Jono. We're going to talk about that. And for those who don't go, we'll talk about it on the bus. We'll talk about it. But anyway, outside the southern end of this tunnel, the southern exit, Eli Shukran was doing archaeology, and they discovered several years ago in one of the chambers of this fortification, this building that they were unearthing, they discovered an inscription on a stone tablet, basically part of the wall. It had been used as secondary, like a lot of times in an older building, and this dates back to the Bronze Age, is what they're saying, this building. But a stone from an earlier building, perhaps, or slightly later, was put into an older building. Anyway,
and repurposed stone, yeah.
On this inscription, there is another inscription. Now, get this one. See if you recognize anything. It says, "Cursed, cursed, dying you will die. Cursed, cursed, dying you will die." Let's see. Governor of the city, dying you will die. Cursed, dying you will die. Cursed, dying you will die. Cursed, dying you will die. I didn't exaggerate. This is what this person scratched into the rock. Let me tell you what this guy has. He has governor. What do they call that? It's derangement syndrome.
Governor derangement syndrome.
He hates the governor so much, Jono, that he would take. This isn't like putting it on Twitter and sending it out to the world.
It's not even like getting a spray can and quickly,
No,
this guy really invested some effort. Yeah.
So you and I have worked recently, and we've covered this, but we've worked recently on these curses. Cursed, cursed, cursed. And, I know at least in a lot of the Western countries, primarily because of perhaps Christianity's influence, but a lot of people talk about the curse of the law.
Yeah, sure.
And people think, I think a lot of people think that they equate the law, meaning the Torah, the Pentateuch, they think of the law of Moses as associated with the curse. And so you think law, you think curse. You think curse, you think law. Of course, that's not true, but that's the thought. And a lot of that is because of a misunderstanding of other texts. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I don't know. I mean, when I think of that, I think maybe the reputation is almost well deserved, because remind me of let me say, I think it's Leviticus chapter 26. Is that right? And I think
that's right.
Yeah, and Deuteronomy chapter 27, 28.
Yeah.
There's an enormous amount of text that goes into horrible curses. We might talk about some of those coming up, and other passages, Ross. I'm sure you could think of some that that talk about the cursing that will take place, and the punishments that will take place for those who go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the distinction that I think that I would make, and I think you would agree, is that the equivalency of curse with Torah is not intended by the Torah itself. However, there is a curse. There certainly is a curse, but the curse is for those who don't do, who don't follow. That's what. That's the way it's presented in the text that you just mentioned. So anyway. But you're right. There is a dominance of curse associated with the consequence for not following. In fact, if you look at the blessings and you list them out as they are in Deuteronomy and in Leviticus, though I'll make a caveat to that in a moment, and you put the curses side by side, there are a lot more curses than there are blessings.
Far outweigh.
It's like 2/3 curse and 1/3 blessing. It's roughly
it is like that. And these two examples, the latest find of Professor Galil, tells us this is what it says. It is curious that both of them sound like cranky old men shaking their their
Yeah.
fist at someone, going, "Die, die! I hate you so much. Be cursed! You go and die somewhere."
Has there
Um,
been a blessing inscription found? I mean, I know about the
the,
silver
the
amulet
Silver
that,
Scroll, yeah.
and
That's the
that's
first thing
almost a
that
direct
comes. That's the
quote.
first thing that comes to mind, and that's what's that, dated to 6th century BCE, I do believe,
We'll
found up
see that
on.
at the Israel Museum. We'll
We'll see
show 'em
that in
that.
the Israel Museum. We can point out where it was found too, on Bible Hill there.
Yeah,
And there's an interesting story that goes with that. But thinking of another like an old something in Paleo Hebrew, or even Phoenician, nothing comes to mind. I'm sure there must be something.
yeah.
Um,
Hopefully there is, because but if there isn't, you would almost expect that if you're surveying the land of ancient Canaan, ancient
mm,
Israel, you would almost expect, based on the fact that there's such a heavy a
emphasis.
dominance of the
Mm,
curse, you would think, well, it's going to be more likely that we'd find a curse amulet than we would, or an inscription with a curse on it, than we would a blessing. Uh,
hmm
but
Interestingly,
yeah,
though, I'm trying to remember, but I think both of these are purported to be dated pre-Israel. These are understood to be Canaanite, if I'm
that's
not
right.
incorrect. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think you're
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Which is interesting, and there is a difference between, and obviously neither of these curses can be aligned with anything in the Torah.
yeah.
So, so it is interesting, anyhow. Um, Now, can we talk about the fallout of what happened in our last program? Because as we were talking about this, and we were talking about the frustrations of allowing the story to run off around the world with the sensationalism attached,
Mhm.
um, and we were waiting for the finer details, of the
Right.
claim. Come on, open it up to peer review. Let people, let the experts really have a look at the claim and have their say. And it occurred to me because now, by the way, everyone who's listening, comment. We'd love to see your comments. Not all of them show, I realize, but sometimes from Facebook, sometimes from YouTube. If you have any questions or
Yeah.
comments, throw them in there because we'd love to see them and we'd like to know who's listening. But I was just going to say that uh, Professor Galil had released a couple of photos. One of them was the stone itself, and another one was a drawing of
That
uh,
he did. That he
that
did.
he did of
Yeah.
the letters that he sees,
Mhm.
and that's as much as he was letting us see. And it occurred to me that we have just behind you is the Moses scroll. There's your book,
Yep.
and Daniel Wright, very talented. Daniel Wright produced the cover of that book,
Mhm.
and it occurred to me that Daniel would be able to take both of these pictures and superimpose one over the other, so that we could actually try and see where are the grooves in the rock that Professor Galil is referring to, and we can kind of make out,
He
are
started
they there or
working
not?
on it when you brought it up. He started
Yeah.
working on it
By
right
the time
then.
we were done with the program, bang, he had done it. He's really good. Daniel is just
Yeah.
he's so quick, very talented. So he produced something that was he was able to line up, as I suggested, the bullet holes, if you like, not that
Mm.
they are actual bullet holes, but the
Yeah.
the drill holes in the rock, because there's a number of as reference points to get it perfect to scale. He did that, and then we were able to have a look and see what Professor Galil is saying he sees.
Right.
What happened?
Well, a couple of things happened. So, uh, you- Daniel and I talked, and he said, "Hey, Jono brought this up, and look here, I just got it. You would have been asleep by this point because we're around the world in different places."
Mm.
And I said, Daniel, why don't you get the exactly the way you want it, whichever picture you prefer, and we'll take that and I'll write up a paragraph that describes what they're looking at, and we'll
Mm.
post this on our academia page." So both of us posted it on our academia page, and it went like wildfire.
I bet it did.
Yeah, quite a few people were downloading it, and then we got a letter, sort of a, how do I put this? Sort of a cease and desist, that just basically, Professor Galil said, "Wait, Just wait until my paper comes out. And in other words, he didn't want us to publish any more about it, or something like that. So we decided, okay, all right.
It
So
is. It's just so
it's
frustrating. You
really
didn't take it down. Don't tell me you
fantastic
took it
job.
down.
No, we didn't
Okay.
take it. No.
So the controversial article that you and Daniel collaborated on is on your academia.
That's right.
All right. So people can go there and you can see
Let me
the overlay of Professor Galil's picture of saying these are the letters that he sees, overlaid with the actual rock, and you can have a look and see if you can see what he sees.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
Go ahead.
called the Jerusalem stone tablet inscription. A
Hmm.
good photo remains a desideratum. So it's
Hmm.
basically it's still desired. It's lacking. We need a good photo, and all that we ask is, hey, let the rest of us see this,
Yeah,
and let us see
and then
what's.
look, he has. I mean, he
Yep.
supplied both of these pictures to the
Oh, he's a
public.
fantastic artist that goes along with his scholarly skills, So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
just,
yeah, absolutely. So it's not as if, and you and I have, and Daniel, I'm sure, have a great deal of respect for Professor Galil,
oh yeah,
and but he supplied the photos. Daniel merely put them together, and to say,
and
hey,
fantastic job, by the way.
a
They,
really good job, as I knew he would do. And then for Professor Galil to say, hey, wait. I mean, it was inevitable that someone was going to do this, and
yeah.
especially if you're going to take your time in supplying the necessary information, so that it seems like, so that the sensationalism can, you know, do
Look,
its job.
let me say this:
Go ahead.
if you make a remarkable discovery
Hmm.
and you don't wait and put it through the proper channels, as in put it through a peer-reviewed process, publish it in an academic journal,
And you have
uh,
to
I
expect.
I don't think you can do anything but expect that people are going
Exactly.
to respond. If you put it out on if you announce it on Facebook, guess what? I see it on Facebook. I'm going to comment on it. I mean,
Hmm.
so I think that there's a little bit of well, I'll just say, if you're going to put it out the way you did, then expect for people to respond to it, and that's going to continue. Now, let me tell you this: there is something else that's brewing, and this has only been released in Hebrew, word on the street. Now, hopefully, we'll know something about. I don't even know if we've talked about this.
I don't know about it.
But I got a note from a friend in Israel who said, "Hey, did you notice? Did you know that there were two other inscriptions that were discovered? Same people involved, same location. They've just been announced." And I said, I thought this person was talking about the Jerusalem stone tablet inscription Eli Shukran found that we've been talking about. He said, no, no, no. I see you talking about the Mount Ebal curse? No. The city of David? No, these are two more: City of David, Eli Shukran, and Galil. So evidently they found a couple more that have just been released, and so far there's nothing in English that's published, but it's
Hmm.
and they're very tight on these. So I'm excited to see what else they found. But I
Yeah.
have to wonder,
Okay.
maybe in this case they're going to release it through a peer-reviewed journal. I don't know, but it's
All
nothing
right.
out there that you can find in English, as far as I can
You've
find. Yeah,
piqued my curiosity, and I'll be waiting to read up on that, and we'll chat about that, no doubt, when it becomes common knowledge in it becomes
yeah,
common knowledge in
yeah,
English. But this is good. So listen, I
yeah.
thought, because of these particular discoveries recent, in the news and all of that, and we have spoken about them, and we've spoken about them again now. That it'd be a good opportunity to talk about the blessings and the curses that appear in the Moses scroll,
Okay,
returning to our text. Shall we do that?
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Now, let us repeat ourselves a little bit, because when it comes to the blessings in the Moses scroll, this is an exciting piece of text, because it is a piece of text that is missing from our Torah, Ross.
Missing,
It's not
missing.
there. You, when we were first studying this, absolutely blew my mind. It would never occur to anybody Well, actually, I lie. It did occur to the rabbis. It occurred to the sages, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it had certainly never occurred to me that the blessings were missing, because we have what I like to call the consequences of the blessings.
Yeah,
We have the consequences of the cursings, and we have those in Deuteronomy, and they do um, uh, they read similarly.
yeah,
They're formulaic. And there's a long list of curses as well, but that is what we like to call the cursed bees. Cursed be the one who da 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 da,
right.
da, and all the people shall say amen. What's missing is the blessed bees. And I remember a couple of years ago when you rang me and said, "Hey, grab your Bible and have a look at this."
I
and
remember that. Yeah.
it it was just one of those things that, as I say, really blew my mind, that the blessed bees are not there. We do have them in the Moses scroll, Ross.
Yeah, do you wanna go through quickly this, the missing blessings a little bit in detail and at least show where it's at in case people don't follow that? Uh,
Do you mean what you like to call interrupting Moses? So what
yeah,
we have is
we can quickly go through it. Just let me do that. If you look at Deuteronomy 11
mhm,
and the end of Deuteronomy 11, it says in verse 26 of Deuteronomy 11, "See, this day I set before you blessing and curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I enjoin upon you this day, and curse if you don't obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn away from the path that I enjoin upon you this day and follow other gods whom you've not experienced," etc. When the Lord your God brings you into the land that you're about to enter and possess, you shall pronounce the blessing at Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Both are on the other side of the Jordan. Now, chapter 11 ends with Moses saying, "I'm putting blessing and cursing before you in front of you. And when you cross over, you're going to announce these on the appropriate mountain." And then you get chapter 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. I did it like that on purpose.
mhm,
Uh, of laws, various laws, legal material. It's called by scholars the law code, and it's in that position. You're talking about when Moses is saying, "Hey, when you cross over this," and then I call it interrupting Moses because it's like he says he gets sidetracked almost, and then you
mm,
have these chapters stacked on top of each other that deal with this, and then out of nowhere it picks back up in chapter 27, just like it was
as if as
as
if
if
that
there was no interruption.
yeah,
In
yeah,
other words, if
as
you
if
read
as if Moses is going, "Hang on, wait, where was I?"
where
Anyway,
was
there's
I?
all of those
Oh yeah,
laws. Oh, yeah, the blessings and the
I was
curses.
talking about the blessing and the curses. And so then
Mhm,
he gets back into it, says, "Look, when you go across," and then he gets into this. Now, the point that you really brought up, and I think it's the most important part of any discussion on this, is that in chapter 27 of Deuteronomy,
mm,
he says, when you cross over, you're going to put up these stones and you're going to put plaster on them, and then you're going to write this Torah. I'm teaching about this on Saturday mornings now because I'm teaching Deuteronomy. You're going to
mm,
write this Torah on these stones covered in plaster. And then he says, and here's the deal, where he's back on the thing about Jordan and having the blessings and curses. He says, that after you cross the Jordan, the following will be on Mount Gerizim and do the blessing over the people, and then the curse. And you're expecting to read the blessed be. Blessed are those who, blessed are those who, blessed are those. But you don't. He just said there you're going to do these blessings, and then he doesn't give them.
mm,
He says, do the curses, and they are listed. Now
right.
you found, and you mentioned it, but I think maybe you were going to do it later. But you found a reference from the sages in
Oh,
the Talmud, right?
I'll read it
Where,
to you.
yeah,
Mhm.
give it to me because that I didn't know that, I'd never heard that, and when you found that, it was like, wow, you
Yeah,
know,
so when I say, nobody would know, evidently, there were some that put two and two together. that the blessings are missing from Deuteronomy. The English explanation of Mishnah Sotah 7.5, Sotah 7.5, puts it this way, quote, Deuteronomy 27 lists only the curses, and it also seems to assume that the Levites who stand in the middle pronounce the curses and the blessings. It also seems to assume, it says. It goes on to say, the Mishnah resolves these two difficulties by saying that the curses in Deuteronomy chapter 27 are only half of what was said. Not only were the curses recited, but the opposite of each curse was also recited as a blessing. And of course, as we know, the Moses scroll has corresponding blessings and cursings for each of the 10 words. So there's a commandment, if you like, then there is the corresponding blessing, and then there is the corresponding verse, just as Mishnah Sotah 7.5 suggests. Ross.
Yeah, that is a very powerful passage that these rabbis, when they read the text, they recognized something was amiss. And so the expectation would be, if you pay attention and you read this, that you have both and you only have the curses. Now, the interesting thing about the curses in Deuteronomy chapter 27 is they don't tie directly to the 10 words, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are tied to some legal material in the Pentateuch, but it's not necessarily to the 10 words.
Right.
And so
So
that's, yeah, go ahead.
if I may, so it's another example of attempting to recall, probably after many renditions of the 10 words and the blessings and the curses have been made. We've talked about that before. The differences, the significant differences between the 10 words in Exodus and the 10 words in Deuteronomy. The attempt at the 10 words in Leviticus chapter 19,
Yep.
and the latter attempts were even within Exodus. Another attempt at recalling the 10 words, and
34.
here
Yeah.
34. Thank you.
Yeah.
And here we have an attempt to recall the blessings, now the curses rather, and the cursed bees. And just looking at it briefly before we started talking, I think I counted maybe there were 11 or 12 cursed bees,
Yeah.
and then a whole lot of elaboration. Like, it really weighs in on it and wants you to feel it, but they don't correspond specifically to each commandment. And this is the difference. So as I mentioned, in the 10 words of the Moses scroll, it's just so seamless and beautiful. You have the commandment, you have the corresponding blessing that pertains specifically to that commandment, and you have the corresponding curse that again pertains specifically to the commandment. Go ahead.
Yeah. This to me, when I first began to investigate the Moses scroll, as we call it, the Shapira manuscript strips, and the text thereof, the thing that hit me so strongly was the idea that central to this document is the covenant being the 10 words. The 10 words, there are actually 10. They're
Mm,
clearly discernible,
as opposed to
whereas
nine,
as opposed to none, like we
mm,
find in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy
five.
chapter 5.
Mm,
So this was interesting because not only are there 10 distinct words, commandments, if you will, though it's not technically commandments, it's a 10 word. These are the
mm,
10 words. But the fact that there are 10 and each one ends with I am Elohim, your Elohim, to mark it. Like, I'm looking at word number 2, sanctify the seventh day. 6 days I made. Notice first person. Exodus
mhm,
20 and Deuteronomy 5 are not first person. And yet, both of those texts say that God spoke these words, but they're in the third person in the
mhm.
canonical text. But here it's
And by
first
the way, they switch over to the third
back
person
and forth. Yeah.
At
Yeah.
different times. Yeah. And go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, so 6 days I made the heavens and the earth and all that's in them, and I ceased on the seventh day. Therefore you shall cease also, you and your animal and all that is yours. I am Elohim, your Elohim.
Mhm.
Now, in the Moses scroll, like Deuteronomy 11 and 27, but without the interruption of chapter 12 through 26, it tells that when you cross over, you're going right there at Eval and Gerizim. you're going to give the blessing and the curses. Levites are going to be in the middle and so forth. And they're going to say this, and then they're going to do the curses. And it gives these curses and blessings, both. And then the interesting thing, like you pointed out, so we know what the Sabbath commandment is, or the word is. And what's the blessing? Look at the blessing. You have the sheet in front of you?
I've got it here. And by the way, this sheet is excellent. This is your work. The Decalogue with corresponding blessings and curses of Moses Shapira's leather strips. Can they find this on your academia page? Because this is
They
really good.
can. Yep, they
Okay, so what
can.
Ross has done is he's got the word there, as you can see, and then the blessing and curse. So it's really seamless. And by the way, it's just 2 pages, and this is the most important part of the Moses
Yeah,
scroll, and it's
I would agree.
very quick and easy to read. So the corresponding blessing to the second word in regard to Shabbat: blessed is the man who sanctifies the seventh day and ceases thereon, and all the people, they will respond and they shall say, Amen. Would
And
you like
then
the
the
curse as
curse.
well?
Yeah, what's
Corresponding curse. Cursed is the man who does work on the seventh day to profane it, and all the people will respond and they shall say, Amen.
I mean, it's to
It's
me,
simple.
this is so powerful because we already know, if you didn't have the Shapira manuscript, set that aside for a moment. We know that we've got in the canonical text, we have at least two versions of the 10 words, Deuteronomy 5, Exodus 20. They don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the curses that are listed in Deuteronomy chapter 27, and there are no blessings. So you have
Mm-hmm.
these difficulties. And by the way, you mentioned Leviticus chapter 26. If you read Leviticus chapter 26, you will get good things will happen if you follow these things. Bad
Mm-hmm.
things, but in Leviticus 26, not once is the word blessing and or curse used. So it's similar.
Is that
And you
right?
wonder, yeah, that's right. So if you look, they're different things, they're different blessings, they're different curses in Deuteronomy 27, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
when you go back to Leviticus 26, in fact, Leviticus 26 is called by scholars let's see what they called it, the blessings and the curses of the legislation of the holiness legislation, the holiness code. So they consider that a priestly version of what you find in Deuteronomy, which is
Mm.
written by a different author. So
Sure.
anyway, but it certainly is strange. And if you say, "Well, I don't believe that. I think Leviticus 26 is for a certain reason, and Deuteronomy 27." Well, why do you have both?
Mm.
It seems enough if you say these are the bad things whether you call it a bad thing or a curse, and these are the
Well,
good things.
well, let's define that, because that's a good question. What is the nature of the blessings and the curses? It's interesting. I will point out, according to the Moses scroll, there are blessings and curses only in specific areas. It's not going to make your whole life rosy, and it's not going to stop anything bad from happening to you,
Yeah,
or to those whom you love. There are specific areas that the document claims that if you keep these words, then you will be benefited in these ways. And if you don't keep these words, then you will be, I'm going to say, detrimented. Can I say that?
yeah,
In
yeah.
these specific ways. And it is fascinating to take that apart and see exactly where the benefit and detriment lie. But that's how I would define those. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think so. And when you look at this, it's very important. And we've talked about archaeological discoveries recently that are associated with curse. You have to wonder, how did they perceive that curse? We've discussed this a little bit, but
Mm.
so for instance, if you say, "Cursed be the governor of the city," dying you will die.
Dying, you will die. Well,
What am
this is
I?
a great. Well,
Yeah,
let's stick with that for a moment, because and combine that with the word that you actually brought up, and I think we go to Numbers chapter, what is it, 19 or 15? I'm trying to remember, where there is an individual who does work on the seventh day to profane it, and he is referred to And I think in Hebrew it says something like he he broke the Sabbath with a raised fist, with a raised hand, as if to say,
Okay.
"I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and collect sticks for the purpose of whatever. I'm going to
Yeah.
build a fire to bake my bread, or I'm going to fix a fence to keep my animals in my pen, or whatever he was going to do. The Torah doesn't tell
Right.
us. It merely tells us that he intentionally went out on Shabbat to gather sticks for the purposes of work. Okay.
Right.
Um, but the interesting thing about that narrative is that they capture the man. They set him aside and they're like, "What shall be done to this man? We, us men, must administer some sort of justice, some sort of punishment upon the individual on behalf of God."
Right.
And it's interesting, and that which and then the narrative tells us that God says, "Oh, he must be put to death." Well, now we have a problem, because if the punishment of breaking a particular law or a particular word is the death penalty, what is the point of curses? Because you can't have one, you can't have them both. Either you experience detriment as a result of disobedience, or you just die. You just
Is
get
it
put
so? So are
to
you
death.
saying like the penalty is going to be $55, life in prison, and death?
Well,
And you're
actually,
like,
yeah, I know that's it. Yeah, it's a bit like that, right? So it's like we're going to we're going to fine you this much. We're going to give you whatever sort of detriment you're going to experience now for the rest of your life. Which, by the way, is only going to be 5 minutes because we're going to put you to death.
right,
It doesn't make any sense. It's either one or the other. The interesting thing about the Moses Scroll is that there is no that God does not require men to enforce his word on his behalf. In fact, we read from the Moses Scroll that the detriment or the blessings are divinely governed. We know that because one of them, in fact, the last one, the 10th commandment in the Moses Scroll, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. In your heart.
yeah,
Who
how
would
would you?
know?
Right.
Who would know what is in one's heart?
Hmm.
But God, and the blessing, the corresponding blessing for that is, "Blessed is the man who loves his neighbor," and all the people shall respond, and they shall say, "Amen." The corresponding curse for that is, "Cursed is the man who hates his brother in his heart," and all the people shall say, "Amen." And I when I talk about this, I reference Jeremiah chapter, I think it's chapter 17, verse 5, is it? Where it says that God knows
He
the heart, He
searches the
searches
heart.
the
Yeah.
soul. That's
Yeah.
right. But not just that. It goes on to say, and uh, rewards uh, or detriments individuals according to their doings.
Yeah.
And this is the way that the Moses Scroll works. He doesn't, according to the Moses Scroll, the claim of this document is that he doesn't rely on individuals. This also reminds me, by the way, and stop me if I'm going down rabbit trails, but the story of Gideon, who goes around and he smashes down all the
Nice.
Baalim and the Asherah poles and all this sort of stuff, and the men of the town come out and they say to his father, "Where's your boy? We're gonna put him to death on behalf of Baal." And his father says something very wise, I think. What does he say?
It's something about let God, if these gods are gods, then let them deal with him or something, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. Who you? Why do you need to speak on behalf of your gods? If they're real
Well,
gods, then let Baal
yeah.
deal with him.
So
But
your point is, and this is one of my questions, and I'm asking genuinely.
hmm,
In the ancient world, I wonder, I'm not so sure. We translate the word aleph resh resh as curse,
hmm,
but we have a certain idea associated with that. In fact, Professor Galil talks about this this inscription. It's got holes in it, and he even says that the shape of the holes are. And I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm just. It sounds a little strange to me, but he says that the holes that are bored into this tablet are in the shape of a head, and so he interprets that the person that's putting the curse on this, he's got this derangement syndrome for the governor of the city, and he's like, "Curse, curse, 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 like he's drawing his little head, like he's, and he says it's
I love
almost
that.
like it's, yeah, it's almost like he's doing, like you would take a voodoo doll.
Mm,
In fact, a lot of people, when he said that, thought, was he? Because his view, and he's certainly a brilliant scholar, but his view is that the ancient art of cursing is
mm.
similar to putting a hex on somebody. So if I want to put a hex on Jono, and I get a little doll that looks like and I make him, and I take my pen, and every once in a while I poke it, and you're in Australia and you're going, oh, what's
You know,
going on?
you know what
I
this
don't
is
know.
like? It's like
I don't know that's the way did they believe that? Because they could
I
have,
it
but
happens today, right? I mean, we see, like, in movies, make use of this imagery all the time. Like, if there's a bad bust up, or there's of a relationship, there's a bad divorce or whatever it is, or something happened in the family, and you have the family photo or whatever, and someone's face
yeah,
is
yeah.
scratched out, or
Okay,
even
maybe,
pinholes in
yeah,
that sort of thing.
yeah.
There was definitely some sort of. It would be clear that if these are accurate translations, then there's definitely a superstitious.
Let me ask something further, because you've given this a lot of thought, on the blessings and the curses. The other thing I think about is, are we properly translating and interpreting this? So is the Levite saying, blessed is the one, like they're putting a blessing on the person when they say this?
Mm,
Say, let me give the example that we just read through. So if I said, blessed is the man who sanctifies the seventh day and ceases thereon. It's not like I'm stating a fact. This is a question almost.
go ahead.
You're almost saying, look, if you keep the Sabbath day, the seventh day, without profaning it, you'll be blessed. Blessed is the man it's that does this the right way.
Mm,
By the same token, cursed is the man. It's not like you're putting a hex on him, like cursed is it, but you're saying the man who does work to profane the Sabbath is cursed.
mm.
I don't know that there's, if I'm being clear
Uh,
enough on what in my head, but
let me tell you what I think
all right,
the purpose of this particular ritual is. Because we're talking about the next generation, some of those who may have been at Horeb as young individuals, and some who were born between these two events. Because you have to remember that people are at they're camped in front of Beit Peor on the east side of the Jordan, about to
right,
go into the land led by Joshua, and Moses is saying, "This is how it started, and this is the story thus far. These are the important information, and now you're going to
whoops,
go into the land. And if you want to uh, live, and this is the constant. G'day, Timothy. Timothy just tuned in. He's saying
hey,
g'day,
Jimmy,
Timothy Thompson. He's going to be on boat tours, and we're looking forward to seeing him. It was good to meet Timothy when I was in Louisiana a few months ago at
yep,
the UI conference. Um, so the purpose is to gain. What's the word I'm thinking of? Um, there's a word that's eluding me. To give permission to an authority, or to someone to act in a certain way. You are gaining. Why can't I think of this word?
permission.
Yeah, it's not just permission. Consent is the word that I want.
Okay,
It is because a lot of them were not at Horeb. This is a restating, if you like. They've just heard the 10 words again. They go over to Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, and they read out this ritual. The Levites read the blessing and the curse, and the people agree. It's important that
right.
people and in every single case, it states that the people, they will respond and they shall say Amen, which is an agreement. It's like, I'm listening, I hear, I
I
accept
agree.
it. I
Amen.
agree, and I consent to the authority of God and His divine blessings and curses, his
Yeah.
divine benefits and detriments according to our conduct. Does that go partly to answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm just trying to get my handle around what force is the word itself when they speak it. I think you're right. I think it's more of you're presenting to the basically the new generation.
Mm,
Here are the rules and here are the consequences, both favorable and unfavorable.
mm,
The good I put before you blessing and curse. If you do these things and you adhere to these things and you keep these words in your heart and you act them out, then blessings will come your way. If you don't, if you choose to disobey, as Leviticus says, if you lift a high hand, if you come at this and you turn against me and you rebel, then bad things will happen. Now,
mm.
even those bad things, though, seem to be presented in such a way that they're meant to bring about correction. Particularly in Leviticus, you read that in 26, and if they don't do this, and then seven times more, and then if they still don't turn back to me, it's
Yeah,
almost like
yeah.
that.
I'll tell you, I'm going to say that that's not quite the. Let me put it another way,
All right.
because the question becomes, what about successive generations who were neither at Horeb nor at Mount Ebal Gerizim? All of that. Successive generations that look back and they say, how do I know that this? I'm taking your word for it. Like
Yeah.
the book of Deuteronomy says, constantly remind your children, tell them this is the reason why, and this is what happened, and so on and so forth, so that successive generations will know. But how do they truly know? There's a leap of faith that must be taken by those individuals that these events actually took place, and that they are bound to conduct themselves according to the 10 words. And I'm not a big fan of the leap of faith theory. G'day,
What's
Tyler.
what's what's the Hey Tyler, what's the leap of faith theory?
So the leap of faith theory is that you weren't there, you didn't see it. Like God says early on in the Moses scroll, and there's a long discussion to be had about this, and we did talk about this in the conference. But he says, listen, after all of my 10 signs and wonders that I showed you, you're still being disobedient.
Yeah.
You doubt my ability to bring this about for you, and then there's detriment, imposed upon the people, and that's the reason why they stay in Kadesh Barnea for however long the Moses scroll doesn't stipulate. But
Yeah.
um, there is. I've lost my train of thought. Help me out here. I've just picked this up. Uh, the leap of faith
Yeah, the leap of
theory.
faith theory is what I was
There,
asking about.
there's a demonstration done to the people before their eyes. They experience and they see it. Um, Successive generations don't have that.
They don't
They
have the
they don't.
benefit of that. Yeah.
And so the request of them is just accept that it happened. And that's the request of us today. Just accept that it happened.
Mhm.
Just accept that these are the things that happen. That is the leap of faith that you make, and then conduct yourself according to the 10 words. But that's not the claim of the document. The claim of the document is observe those who are blessed for observing the 10 words, and observe those who are cursed for not observing the 10 words, and make up your own mind. This is what I refer to as the scientific method. That is, that the 10 words that it claims to be observable and repeatable. And we even see that in the consequences of the blessings, which I can read to you, but we also have it in Deuteronomy in a slightly elaborated form in chapter 6, I think, where it says that the nations shall look upon Israel who are observing the 10 words and see
Right.
how blessed they are, and say to themselves, this nation that has a God so close to them
Yeah.
that these particular areas just work for them, and as a result, they are elevated, they are above and not beneath. They lend to many, but they do not borrow. That, so on and so forth, and that's the way it's supposed to work. And it says something similar within the Moses scroll as well. It's the scientific method. It's observable, it's repeatable, and people observing, even outside of Israel, nations outside of Israel, say, hey, there seems to be wisdom here. There seems to be
Yeah.
something that works here, that seems like there is actually a God that is working for them on their behalf. Maybe we should implement some of this, and
And
that's
see
what we
what happens.
see,
Put it to
and
the
see what
test.
happens. Now,
Yeah.
if you look back over the last few thousand years, right, or even centuries, you look at countries that have used the 10 words, even in the form that we have them,
Yeah.
slightly different and distorted in Deuteronomy and in Exodus, but it is the basis of law in countries that other countries that don't have that are begging to get into,
Hmm.
are knocking down the walls and saying, let us in, let us in. We want to be part of this. You are a country that's very, very blessed, and we want to
Yeah.
be part of that. The problem
Right.
is that many people don't know why it's so blessed. And these days, we have a movement that is knocking down, taking the 10-word plaque off courtrooms and off schools and off
Oh, yeah.
public halls and all of this sort of stuff, and it's being removed.
Yeah.
So does
They're
that
hating the very thing that nurtured us all these,
exactly? Oh, well
centuries
said.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well said. Hmm.
Yeah. It's an attack on the foundation that gave them the freedom to say the bad things they're saying,
Hmm.
ironically enough.
Quite
We
right.
we do have quite a few people saying, "Hey," and some of these are going on the tour with us. I just pulled up Facebook, and, so we have, Mr. Cheney, he's going with us,
Hey,
Christo,
he
and we
is. Christo,
got,
g'day, mate.
Peggy Sanders and Linda
G'day, Peggy.
Hill, and uh,
Yeah.
so we've got people that are. Let's see, I don't want to miss anyone, but Patty and Dave are both watching. So we're happy to. Let me ask you this: talking about the
Go ahead.
blessing and curse on the tour, since we're going to the place,
Mm,
traditionally at least to Shechem,
mm,
maybe it would be fun if while we're there we tell the story and we talk about the blessings and the curses, and
mm.
we'll bring obviously the Moses scroll, and we'll say, all right, now everyone who's here, get your Bibles out, and we'll have the Moses scroll, and we'll say, now, you guys, you're going to read the blessings from
Oh, we should
Deuteronomy
do that.
27, and you
Yeah.
guys are going to read the curses, and then we'll let us know when you find them. Raise your hand and
Mhm.
see what happens. But I do think that this is one of the key points of the document, that I think lends to authenticity.
Mm.
And I think the fact that
Oh, yeah.
SOPA 7.5 mentions
Yep.
that, we would expect these and we can't find them, and
Yeah.
I think that's pretty
Oh, look,
interesting.
I think you and I are beyond that too. I think we even stopped talking about defending it as an authentic document. It so clearly is that it almost seems silly to entertain the fact that there are some scholars that believe it to be a forgery. Let them argue the
Yeah,
point, because
yeah,
the evidence far. I mean, it's ridiculous to even keep referring to it, I think. And as far as you and I are concerned, and many others, top scholars indeed, uh, know this to be a genuine, authentic Dead Sea Scroll, and that this scroll claims to be a copy of the scroll of the Torah of Moses. And only really when you spend some time with it and really dissecting the philosophy and the theology of the document, that you really can see, my goodness, this is an amazing document.
yeah.
Um, and and you and I have been beside ourselves with it, for well over a couple of years.
It truly has totally altered the course of everything that I planned on doing prior to this. But
That's right.
I tell you, I'm looking forward now. We've been going for a pretty good while already tonight, but let me say this without giving too much away. I know you're doing some research and you may not want to get into that very much, but at least there is an idea that you're looking at that's at least partly related to this. And is it fair to at least let people know that you're deep into this whole topic right now? I mean,
So when it comes to, and you alluded to this at the beginning, so when it comes to the idea of the Torah and curses, there is the idea, and I did talk about this at the conference as well, not on the presentation that is videoed, but in the Q&A afterwards. And I
yeah,
have to say, um, my understanding has changed a little since I gave that answer, but it has to do with, and a lot of people are interested in this, and there's libraries of books written on the topic. It has to do with what is commonly referred to as vicarious punishment or transgenerational curses. And the idea behind that comes from the first commandment as it is presented in Deuteronomy and in Exodus,
Yeah.
the prohibition against idolatry, and the caveat that follows that prohibition, which says, or the understanding thereof, is that if your father, for example, commits idolatry, well, you're going to experience the curses of that. Not only you, but your son and your grandson is also going to experience the curses of that. Sucked in, tough luck. Your father shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
That's the idea of vicarious. And so, we have other verses. For example, Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 16, that says, "Yeah, that's not right. That doesn't happen." And then it's mentioned in Jeremiah chapter 31.
Yeah.
Is it
30 at the end of chapter 30, right
30
before.
verse 29? I think, where God says through the prophet, "What do you mean by quoting this proverb that the fathers eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge? What
Another, and
can you?"
does that mean? It seems like that means the thought of the day, the prevalent parable
Mm,
or proverb was that if I sin, my children get the bad results of that.
mm, mm.
They reap the harvest of my sin.
That's right. That's
And
right. And so,
yeah,
so there's that, and then there's, as we know, Ezekiel chapter 18, and it's repeated in 33. But chapter 18 says, God through the prophet says the same thing. Why are you quoting this proverb? I'll tell you what. Can you stop? Because
yeah,
let me tell you why. And he unpacks it in very specific detail. That's not the way it works.
yeah.
The soul that sins is responsible for their own sin, um, and it doesn't pass from one to another. So
So you're
what's going on
working
here?
on this problem. You're working on this
Well,
problem,
once again, the Moses Scroll solves the problem, and it's so satisfying. This document, Ross.
but you're
You
not
know
going
it.
to tell us that tonight. We
We
don't.
don't have time. We don't have
Yeah.
time. We're going to now. I'm in the middle of putting together an article on the topic, and you're helping me with that. And maybe by next week, when we talk about this, we'll be able to tell the people what the Moses Scroll says. And we've had some help from Alistair, my mate in the library
Right.
where I study these things. G'day to Alistair. G'day, Derek. Derek says, but not as God punishment as results of your father doing wrong. We'll talk about it, Derek. We will talk about
Yep.
it because, as I already mentioned, the curses and the blessings are divinely governed. They're divinely governed. So we will get back to that, and I will address it. But there are four passages, two in Exodus, one in Numbers, one in Deuteronomy, that says, no, if your father sins, then you and your son and your grandson are going to suffer the consequences of that. There are four verses in the Tanakh, two within Deuteronomy, by the way, that says, no, that's not the way it works, actually. Each person is responsible for their own sins. And there are four explanations, Ross.
Four
Yeah,
different explanations.
four different explanations of the Jewish sages over the many centuries, trying to explain. Oh, let me explain this for you in a way that will make it work. None of them do. All of them are wanting, and I'm going to address all of these. So, and once again, as I mentioned, the Moses Scroll does solve the problem, and it's very, very satisfying. We don't have. But speaking of blessings and curses, it would be, and you're right to bring it up. This is a big part of biblical theology that needs to be addressed, and I would say, according to the Moses Scroll, needs to be corrected. So we may get into that next week. We're going to have to
Okay,
keep people on the edge of their
see how
seats.
it goes, and I know you're researching, and I know how research goes. Sometimes, and this has happened to you, and it's happened to me, and probably people listening. You're looking at one problem, and then you open up more and more doors, and before long, it's a little bit bigger of a. So we'll see how it goes, and if you're ready to talk about it, we're happy to listen. But I've heard a good bit of it, and initially I gave some pushback. I mean, because I didn't quite understand, but after you explained it to me, I thought, man, I think it's revelatory. I think it's big. I think it's important. And I think it resolves an issue that for a lot of people, I mean, it's not just in the church, but people have this idea that bad things have happened to me, and it must have been something in my family, like a
Mm,
generational curse. People talk
yep.
about this. They have books written. They have
Yeah.
ministries that can break the
Yep.
chains of
Yep.
your
Oh
generational
man,
curses.
I'm telling you,
Yeah,
it is now one of my pet hates. I'll tell you right now.
yeah,
And I would say that that's a destructive mindset.
yeah,
Uh, and I will look. I'll tell you what. Let's endeavour to, because I've been snowed down doing admin for the Tanakh tour, getting all our ducks in a row for this last week, and I think we've pretty much done that. Let's see if we can dedicate this coming week to getting this article finished, and we'll talk about it next week because it really is a big deal. And again, I just want to mention also Yoel Halevi, our friend Yoel Halevi in Israel. There had a look at this. I love Yoel because he's appropriately skeptical,
yeah,
which I wanted. He really had a look at this, and initially he was like you. This is what it traditionally says, is what it understands. And then when I persisted with it, he goes, you know what? I think you're right. I think this is actually what the writer of the Moses Scroll is intending to say. So we're going to talk about that hopefully next week. G'day to Marianne, who's
yeah. Hey,
quoting one
Mary.
of those verses. Yeah, that's one of the 4 references in Exodus chapter 20, verse 5. That's right.
So I'm looking forward to it, Jono, and I have a little bit. I know more than I'm letting on because you've shared with me what you're working on. So I'm looking forward to whenever you're ready, whether it's this coming Thursday or if it's even if it's later. It's worth the wait. So we'll look for that. Just one more time before we go.
Mm,
Let's if there's any way that you can go to Israel and Jordan with us, we're going to be seeing sites associated with things going on in the Tanakh. There's something about, like Jono, you posted that meme, I guess you'd call it, that had a checklist of various places that are your
yep.
favorites. You have read about or walk about.
Walkabout. Yeah.
It really is. It totally changes everything when you go and you're actually there on the ground in the place where these things go.
Hmm.
I mean, we've
Yeah.
we've done things where we acted out in front of people. You've been David, I've been Goliath. We've acted this out in front of people. When we go through the Siloam tunnel, we'll talk about Hezekiah bringing
When
water
you
into
go
the
through.
city. Yeah, when I
Yep.
go through. So
Yeah.
if there's any way that you can go, and you're sitting on the fence right now, I promise you it's worth it. So,
Mm.
Joe, that's what we need to do is,
And
maybe put out a few more. We still have seats available, so let's fill them.
there's a few seats. And again, there it is, tanaktours.com at the bottom of the page. Go there, reserve your seat today, and we would love to see you. And it's not just the Tanakh. I mean, as you mentioned, reading about it is one thing. Being there and looking around the land and understanding, how and where it happened and all this, it's amazing. It changes everything and enriches your biblical understanding. And we're not just going to be talking about the Tanakh, but we will be addressing, in some places where appropriate, the Moses Scroll and what it says
Sure.
there as well. So I'm very excited.
And the modern state of Israel, we'll show people the miracle that
That's
is the modern state
Yeah,
of Israel. So,
modern history as well. Have to do it. Have to do it. All right, my friends, that is us for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry we didn't get the Facebook comments up on the feed here, but we're going to have to figure out what we're
yeah, we'll
doing
figure
wrong.
that out. I'll look at that this week and see if I can't
We'll
figure
figure
out
it
how
out.
it's.
It's all good. But I tell you what, have a great week. Hopefully we'll be back this time next week.
Hey, have a beautiful week.